Diaries of a Madman. By What Must I Do? Chapter 194. Part 3 of 3. This time, we were in a huge field of rolling hills with a few huge trees here and there. It looked like things were moving around the trees, but they were all too far away to see clearly. Twilight and her brother were sitting across from each other, a wooden stump between them. Interrogation room? I ask. That would be correct, my guide said. So you read some of Nav's journals? Shiny asked. Why didn't you tell Aniponi what was in them? Because he added in so much nonsense that it was impossible to tell what was real and what wasn't. For reasons that are now pretty obvious, he was paranoid. There was an entry where he says he paraded as a masked pony at his first gala here to seduce me. There was another entry where he stayed with Luna the whole night. It was impossible to figure out the things I didn't have direct knowledge of. That is, so like him, Shiny sighed, shaking his head. You know, he told me about some of this once. At the Europe party, when he told me he was leaving. He told you, too. He did, Shiny said. And that if I told Aniponi at all, that he was gone. He said the same to Cadance. Now that I know more, I understand why. Well, it's been a while, but I can tell you what little I do remember from what he wrote. I can also add in some of the other things I know. But I want to know how you're planning on taking down Celestia. Luna's the weak link, Shiny said. We can't hit them both at once. If we can convict Luna properly, then we'll begin building the case against Celestia. But you know it won't be easy, Twilight. The right thing rarely is. The girls, they were talking about trying to fight. We can't just sit back and wait for you to conduct an investigation. There has to be something for us to do. Shiny sighed and leaned back. Who would have thought Nav would ever cause this? Nav didn't cause a thing, Twilight said. He's the victim, Shiny. Luna caused this. And Celestia hid it. And we're going to try to convict her, but she's Princess Celestia. Despite an actual confession in front of several witnesses. And given that the victim wasn't a pony. That doesn't make a bit of difference. Twilight shouted, slamming both her hooves on the table. Nav's every bit as intelligent as any pony, and more so than most. It shouldn't make a difference, Shiny said. But as Nav himself taught me, many things that should be, aren't, and many things that are, shouldn't be. Luna is a princess. She abused something that was not a pony. Any court will take those facts heavily into consideration. If they've done such horrible things to Nav, I refuse to believe they haven't done worse. Oh, they have, Shiny said. Nav told me that Celestia has modified my mind. I apparently discovered something she wanted hidden. And if he knows about a single instance, I can't help but wonder how many might have slipped my notice entirely. I have missing time around Celestia, too, Twilight slowly said. I never thought about it in that way, but... would she really? What crimes could they have hidden? What monstrous deeds have the princesses done? I fear no pony will ever know the depth of their evil. It's insidious. What can we do to help you? Twilight asked. Let's start with your missing time, Shiny said. Tell me about that. The memory finally froze as Twilight started yammering on. This obviously didn't go very far, I said. Twilight was right back up Celestia's ass the next time I saw her, a few months later. Not entirely, my guide said. Not enough. This event shook Twilight and all of her friends. It is part of why she is now your little Twiggles. So what's the takeaway here? Twilight spelled it out quite clearly. You are not, nor were you ever, at fault for what happened. In all of this, you are just a victim. Even with the pull, every person who did horrible things to me had a choice to make. Mind, I've done some pretty fucked up things myself, but not raping someone is a lot easier than actually raping them. When Luna confessed the way she did, she made you a victim yet again, my guide said. That was not your fault. How is that not my fault? I ask. That was my ultimatum. My mistake was thinking she wouldn't be dumb enough to actually do it. Luna had a choice to make, my guide said. She knew she hurt you. You offered her a chance at forgiveness. She took it. I will never forget the look in her eyes, I said. The memory haunts me. Why did you run? My guide asked. When she confessed in front of all of those reporters, why did you flee? Because I never intended to forgive her. That was a lie. I just wanted to watch the two of them burn. And I ran because I saw the hope in her eyes. She honestly, legitimately believed I would forgive her. So why did you run? Why not just tell her? Why not just tell all the world that what she did was unforgivable? Because I am a single human against two giants. Two literal goddesses who have been using me as a plaything from day fucking one. One of those giants just confessed to all the world that she had been doing whatever she pleased to me while the other just watched. Why wouldn't I run? You're a coward. I'm not an idiot. What was I supposed to do? Should I have told her that I wouldn't forgive her and that she should go fuck herself? In that moment, you stood a titan. You had the power of the entire crowd at your fingertips, Nav. All the reporters, all the knights, all the guards, everything. Luna gave you all the cards. And you threw them away. I will admit that I could have handled things better. You ran, tail between your legs, the instant you had the chance. Victory in your hands for the first time in a long time and you ran. I have a survival instinct. From the moment Fancy told me we weren't going to the castle exit, it started going haywire. By the time we got to where Luna was having the meeting, so many signals were going off in my head. Little alarm bells, things telling me that I needed to be somewhere else. Watching Luna confess is probably the scariest thing I have ever seen in my life. You've literally seen into hell, my guide said. It meant any chance I ever had of being a nobody again was gone. I wanted to go about the world, free the elementals, and find a place to settle down where I could live in peace. After Luna's confession, I would always be known as the victim. You are not at fault for what others do. I knew Luna was insane. I knew she would stop at nothing to get me. When I gave her that ultimatum, I knew she would do it. I knew she would be crazy enough to actually fucking do it. I took advantage of Luna's mental illness to score a hit against them both and I didn't even realize what I had done until it was too late. You are not Luna. I knew she actually covered my mouth with water. You suspected. She made the choice. And I don't know if I can ever forgive her for it. There is nothing that says you have to forgive anything. You just have to stop blaming yourself. That is for victims. Will I ever be able to forget her eyes in that moment? No. Are you ready to move on? I'm starting to see why this coma spell has such a bad reputation. It seems so easy to get lost in memories. Generally speaking, those who turn inward for answers would be much better off searching outward instead. Let's move on. Her eyes pulsed and we finally went onward. I appeared alone in a maze of boxes. My rifle was slung around my shoulder and my sword was in my belt. As soon as I looked around, I heard Miguel's laughter. Oh, I'm in Stalingrad, I said, drawing my sword. When Miguel stabbed me in the back with a cursed vampiric dagger while Taya was freaking out. And Flo panicked, Miguel replied, his voice echoing all around me. Leaving you almost entirely helpless. And yet my filly and I were the ones who walked away. I finally started walking, since I figured I wasn't going to get any useful directions. At this point, I was much better skilled and could hopefully wipe the floor with him. Why did you come here? Miguel asked. Discord tricked my filly, getting her to bring me here. The coma, Navi. Why did you enter it? Because I felt helpless. Because my body and mind were not my own. Because I needed a change and didn't know how else to enact it. Why were you here, Miguel? What holdover you did Discord have? He saved me in the revolution. He called it a favor for a favor, something to be cashed in later. While I was in Stalingrad, he came to me and told me what I had to do. He's not here, now. We don't have to fight. He is everywhere you are, is he not? Just like that, one of his paws reached around from behind me to slice one of my cheeks. I tried snatching it, but he was too quick. When I whirled around, he was already jumping backward. Before I could charge, he vanished in midair with a grin. According to him, I said, continuing to walk. The blood trickling down my cheek didn't particularly bother me. Do you really think driving you to this coma wasn't his plan? Maybe it was. Maybe it wasn't. I'm here now. I finally came to a four-way intersection of boxes. The path leading right quickly veered off. The path straight ahead was narrow but clear for a while. The path leading left was wider, but had several more offshoots. The unknown was slightly better than two options I knew were shitty, so I turned right and walked straight into the nicest jail cell I've ever seen. Luna was behind the bars. Celestia stood on the other side. Why are you here? Luna asked. It isn't often I have the opportunity to visit family in their time of need, Celestia smugly replied. Aren't you happy your dear older sister came to visit you in prison? You laugh now, but I know Shining Armor and Midnight Blossom are both still working on a way of taking you down. Shining Armor needs no longer to concern either of us. Oh? Did you finally take my advice and put that worthless stallion down? Celestia finally smiled. The Crystal Empire returned. I sent Cadance to collect her birthright. Her husband, of course, went with her. Their lovely little alicorn foal has been left here in Canterlot, where it's safe. So you mean to let Sombra deal with them both and try again with Skyla? Once they've both almost certainly perished, I'll send in a trusted group to deal with him. With Skyla in my hooves, it will be easy to enforce governorship over their so-called empire. She will be much more grateful than her mother, I assure you. So how do you intend to deal with Captain Midnight? Any case she can build against me hinges on there being a case against you. If you aren't convicted of anything, by definition, I can't be either. I confessed, sister. In front of enough witnesses that there can be no denial of my guilt. If I go to the gallows, it is with a heart finally unburdened. Well, we're in a fairly ideal position at the moment. Shining Armor is the only one with a shield powerful enough to keep you in. He is no longer here. Of course, he isn't officially gone yet. I ordered that no word of it be spread, so that you would have no way of finding out. I chose to enter these bars, Celestia. If Navarone cannot forgive me for what I have done, then I will accept whatever may come. So here is the plan, Celestia said. You are going to escape. When you escape, you are going to your room and grabbing whatever you may need for an extended vacation. I am going nowhere until it is ordered by the courts of Equestria. Celestia grinned and reached through the bars to cup her sister's cheek. My dear, sweet little Luna. I am Equestria. I am the courts. I am the law. I am everything to these ponies. I am Princess Bucking Celestia. And you are done disobeying me, Luna. She finally pulled her hoof back and stood up straight to stare Luna down. Every choice you made led you to where you are right now. Your life is your fault, Luna. No more. I tried giving you fewer restrictions. I tried letting you live in peace and in luxury. But you couldn't handle it. So if it's war you want, it is war you shall have. An eternity of it, as much as you can possibly want. So when I leave this disgusting prison, you are going to be one step behind me. You are going to get whatever you require. And then you are going to Tartarus. And if I refuse, I will have Navarone hunted down and executed in front of you. I'll be in touch. Celestia's horn lit up and she teleported away without another word. That ended the memory, putting me back in the maze. I had gotten further ahead while in the memory, but didn't have any new injuries. Where exactly do you think you're going? Miguel asked. All of these paths lead to one place, you know. I finally sheathed my sword, lifted up my rifle, and turned on the thermal vision. As far as I could tell, he wasn't anywhere in the building. So as soon as I lowered the rifle, I slammed it behind me, catching him in the chest with the butt of the gun. He staggered back and disappeared before I could try to finish him. Since the rifle obviously wasn't going to be useful, I slung it again, drew my sword, and continued to walk. Miguel finally stayed silent, so I had time to think about the last memory. Celestia was going to let Shiny and Cadance die, then send Twilight to avenge him. With Skyla's parents dead, she would be putty in Celestia's evil hooves. And instead of allowing Luna to do the right thing, she forced her to run. Is it any surprise that Celestia is evil? Miguel asked. No. I'm just tired of seeing it. The ponies deserved better. And so you decided it was your place to give it to them. This time, he appeared in front of me. My sword swung up to block the cursed knife he was thrusting at me. His other paw reached in and tried to scratch my other cheek, but I lunged forward and head-butted him, knocking him to the ground and sending the cursed dagger sliding across the floor. Right as I tried kicking him, he vanished, putting me off balance and almost knocking me to the floor. Thankfully, he left the dagger behind when he vanished. I picked the evil thing up and stabbed it into a wooden box. Once I was sure it was stuck in place, I slammed my sword down on it, slicing the handle straight off the blade. The dagger screeched as it was sundered. When the handle finally hit the floor, I continued walking without a word. That was a gift, you know, Miguel said, almost sounding personally affronted. Then it sounds like you should have chosen your allies better. My friends give much nicer gifts. It took me about another minute to get to an intersection. This time, there were only two paths forward. The path on the right led to a fairly wide walkway. The path on the left led to a box that I could easily use to get onto the other boxes. That's obviously the path I chose. I appeared in the throne room of the Crystal Empire with shining armor and Cadance. The lack of guards meant this was before I arrived. Celestia sent us here to die, Shining Armor said. The evidence seems to point that way, Cadance sighed. Twilight was right. It's more rare when she's wrong, honey. What did she say this time? She and the elements of harmony wanted to fight. What Celestia did was monstrous. Captain Midnight and I wanted to take her down legally. We thought the only way we could legitimately try removing her was with the courts, but she is the court, Cadance sighed, hanging her head. And she sent us here, probably to die to this cloud of dark magic. All for trying to investigate her crimes. What are we going to do, Cadance? How are we going to survive this? We have to hold on, Shiny. Celestia has been grooming me for this role for a very long time. I can see it all quite clearly, now that Nav has ripped the blinders of innocence from our eyes. She wants this city. It'll be hard to take it if a haze of black magic takes it and digs in deep. Which means that she does not intend to let that happen. Celestia will send some pony else after she thinks we're dead, some pony who will be able to help us. Or who might be ordered to make sure we don't come back. So what are we going to do, Shiny? Cadance asked. There is no running. The train left us here. With that black magic, we can't teleport out. We are trapped. All we can do is wait and hope. I feel like I might be going mad, honey. I've felt the same way for a long time, dear. I actually wish Nav was here. Some part of me feels like he would know what to do. Nav is far from here, Cadance said. Retired, living a life of love and peace. Don't wish him into this dark place. He has had his unfair share of trials and tribulations. This one is ours to face and beat, Shiny. We just have to hold on long enough to do it. I can defend you for 1,000 lifetimes, my love, Shiny said. We will live to bring justice back to Equestria. It will be a joyous day. We just have to figure out how to get there. The memory ended, putting me on a stairway of boxes leading straight up into the sky, as far as my eyes could see. I was surrounded on all other sides by an impenetrable wall of them. Since I didn't really have any other choices, I started climbing the crates. You enjoyed stealing their victory, Miguel whispered. No, that's not true, I said. I enjoyed stealing Twilight's victory. I didn't give their victory any thought. Your friend. The one who sheltered and helped you from the very beginning. And you wanted to steal her victory. She was acting all kinds of selfish, saying it was for a personal test from Celestia and shit. As soon as I heard that, my goal became to make sure she failed it. Some friend you are. Some friend she is. Some sister, for that matter. She wasn't there to help Shiny or Cadance. She just wanted to. I heard clothes flapping above me, so I jumped back a box as he landed where I had been standing. My sword sliced out to try and take out his legs, but he jumped over it and tossed a powder on the ground before disappearing. The powder spread out and got in my eyes, stinging them like crazy. A guide sure would be nice right about now, I said, forcing myself to get back on the next box. It's just you and me, Miguel replied with a mean little chuckle. I could barely see, so it was kinda surprising when the staircase of boxes ended. Unfortunately, it was only another level of the maze. Once again, I had 3 directions to choose from. My eyes weren't working well enough to distinguish any of them, so I just continued going straight into another memory. For some reason, my eyes were working properly now. It allowed me to see Celestia in Blossom's office. Blossom looked very reasonably upset. Celestia seemed calm. So Luna chose to flee? Celestia asked. That's troubling. Every time I spoke to Luna, she said she had no regrets about her fate. She honestly answered every question we asked. She honestly said that she was happy to finally be brought to justice. Strange. Well, she could be anywhere by now. I even asked her if she planned to escape. She told me no. We had the truth spell cast on her, so there's no way she could have lied. She must have changed her mind, Celestia replied with a shrug. It's obvious she's in no right state of mind. Why did you send Shining Armor away? Blossom slowly asked. The Crystal Empire way up north has returned, Celestia said. He and his wife are uniquely skilled to take and hold the kingdom. They had to go before their opponent could claim it. And you weren't available to help keep a shield over Luna in his stead. I'm afraid I've been at the party in Europe, Celestia said. I happened to know that was a lie. All the information I got at the party said she was staying in Canterlot the whole time. I've only just returned. I went to visit Luna only to find she wasn't there. I don't like this. It all stinks. Celestia grinned and walked closer to the desk. Blossom leaned back in her seat. I'm glad I have at least some good news for you, Midnight. Now that Prince Shining Armor has his own kingdom, we are due for a new guard captain. Despite Luna's many issues, she knows soldiers and she knows loyalty. And she recommended you for the job every chance she could get. It is now within your reach. I wasn't aware Captain Armor had already been removed from the roster. It won't be official until he returns to muster out, but his replacement will need to begin working sooner rather than later if they are to catch Luna. Most guard captains before have been nobles. Name your title and I'll make it happen. That actually made Blossom blink in surprise. You give and obey orders well, Midnight. Nav told me all about your part in the war games. If you have the respect of both Nav and Luna, you are well worth whatever reward you might request. If a title is what you wish to become my new captain, then you shall have one. That won't be necessary, Princess, Blossom slowly said. I just didn't know if a commoner would be welcome in the highest position in the army. Celestia reached a wing over to poke her new captain on the nose. This is Equestria, Captain Midnight Blossom. You will be welcome wherever I tell every pony you are welcome. Should you ever change your mind about a title, just let me know. With that, Celestia started walking out. I'll keep you up to date with the hunt for your sister, Blossom said. Oh, please do. I'll find it simply riveting. And the memory finally ended with Miguel standing directly in front of me. I tried kicking him between the legs, but he jumped aside. He wasn't able to dodge the punch to the side of the face, which knocked his head against the boxes. Before he could hit the ground, he disappeared. I grinned and continued walking. I've gotten a little better since last we met. And I remain stagnantly dead in your memories. You can't kill me, you know. Oh? And why is that? Taya killed me, not you. That might be a setback. Well, depending on how this bullshit place works. Do I just need to survive or does he need to die? My eyes were finally starting to hurt less, so I could tell now that the walls around me were lower than they had been, and it looked like I was coming up on another two-way intersection. As soon as I stepped into it, I caught a throwing knife in my left arm. I spun around, ripping the knife out and hunting for a target. I could see him on top of one of the walls. Before I could throw his own knife at him, he vanished. Poisons didn't really bother me, so I pocketed the knife and started walking left. This time I appeared on the deck of the ship. It was the far back of it, behind the wheel. Cumini and Cot were standing next to the rails. The pony at the wheel was grey. Nav is mine, Cumini said. I understand. I have no intention of going after him while he's with you. He hasn't told me much about you since we got on the ship. That's somewhat surprising, Cot said. Cumini reached out and grabbed Cot by the throat, lifting her up over the back railing. Spike and Doppel did, though. Cot was trying to claw at Cumini's scales, which wasn't doing much. And that's when I remembered that we had actually met, at last year's party. And while we were there, Nav told me exactly what you had done. So I kinda have to ask myself why I don't just let go. Cot probably wanted to give a few reasons, but her throat was a little busy being crushed. The few noises she could make were unintelligible. You're pretty lucky, though. If Nav invited you here, he had a reason. So I won't kill you. I think I'll hold you here for a little longer, though. A spanking wasn't anywhere near enough punishment for a rapist. Maybe I'll get lucky and my claws will get tired. She finally loosened her grip just enough that Cot could only barely breathe. Judging by the landscape, I'd say we had a pretty large time jump of about 15 minutes. Cot was now crying and frantically trying to escape. Cumini was giggling at her useless attempts. I'm not really sure how nobody noticed this happening for so long, but we were finally getting into where it was really cold. If you keep jerking around like that, I might drop you, Cumini finally said. It's almost like you want to die. Although, you know, going splat might not be the worst way for a rapist to go out. I told Nav I was going to talk to you. I can just tell him your temper got the better of you and I had to defend myself. Cot's eyes widened and she tried shaking her head. Oh, so you don't like that idea? Oops. She actually let go. Cot probably would have screamed, but her throat was too fucked up. Cumini giggled and waited a few seconds before jumping off the side, ending the memory. I didn't know people were bullying Cot. She never said a word. Of course she never said a word, Miguel replied. Who would stand up for her? Me. She did something wrong, but 2 wrongs don't make a right. 3 lefts do, though. And what matters is that she believes you wouldn't stand up for her. After all, you picked Cumini, not her. Who I picked has nothing to do with what behavior is or isn't acceptable. Non-consensually choking people is mean, and if I had known about it, I would have stopped it. You always did act like the great leader, Miguel said with a chuckle. And yet you're so broken inside that you resorted to this. How can you ever lead anyone if your own life is in shambles? I can't. That's why I'm working on getting my shit together. Again, the point of the coma. And do you really believe these spirits are here to help you? I sure fucking hope so. Not really worth thinking about at this stage, though. I'm in too deep and there's no going back. Have you ever considered that you spend too much time acting and too little time thinking? No, I never stopped to consider it. He actually snorted a laugh. Thinking is really painful, all things told. No matter what I do, all my thoughts tend to go back to certain things. Places like this stupid maze. I don't know how many times I've walked it in my mind, going over what happened and what could have gone wrong. I felt a blade enter my bat wing, stabbing straight into it. As much as I wanted to spin around, that would be bad for my wing. Instead, I kicked backwards, pushing him back and knocking the knife out. I whirled around, wildly slashing out. Thankfully, my blade just barely nicked one of his legs, making him hiss and disappear. Run, 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 fast as you can, I said, continuing to move forward. But you won't escape me, I promise. I am the hunter, not you. Keep telling yourself that, kitty. I'm glad Taya put you down. I still remember those faces you had in your drawer. And I still remember playing with Jocasta's panties with you. It didn't sound like the sword affected him, but he fell silent. It didn't take much longer to find another three-way intersection. Since all roads led to the same place, I just kept going straight. I appeared in Doppel's room. She was cuddling a mopey Taya. You know he loves you, Doppel said. Does he? Taya bitterly asked. It's his birthday and he's drinking again. He still isn't happy here. He still doesn't love me enough. Nav's been through a lot, Doppel quietly said. I managed to snag a newspaper before we left, so I saw the articles. It was horrific. What articles? Taya slowly asked. He said Luna did some things to him, but he didn't really say what. Well, maybe you should ask your father. He won't tell me anything. He doesn't trust me. Now I know that's not true, Doppel said, leaning in to nuzzle my filly. Your father loves and trusts you, Taya. He just doesn't want you to worry about him. And the news is... well, it's worrying. I'm his filly. I need to know everything about him so I can be a better daughter. How can I cheer him up if I don't even know what's making him sad? Or if he locks me out so he can drink alone? It's difficult to be there for him when he locks you out, that's for sure. I can't believe he's not even letting Cumini give him any special gifts. Where's the newspaper, Doppel? I wanna read it. I threw it away. Taya's horn lit up. They both looked at it. Doppel slowly gulped and they looked back at each other. Your father would be really unhappy if I gave it to you, Taya. He never talks to me anyway. It's not like he'll ever find out. You know what you should do, Taya? You should start spending as much time as you can with him. Now that we're on this ship, you can sit in his room with him all day long. And wherever he goes, you can go. You're right. He can only escape me by flying away, and I can still make wings to stalk him even then. Stalk. So how about bringing me that newspaper, Your master's filly commands it. Doppel sighed and rolled off the bed. It's only a matter of time before you find out anyway. She reached into a drawer and pulled out the awful newspaper of doom. Taya snatched it away with magic and started reading. One of her hooves almost immediately shot to her mouth and tears started leaking from her cheeks. Doppel sighed and walked back to cuddle her again. There's a reason he didn't want you to know. This is awful. And I'm sure he's been through more, things that didn't make the papers. Taya tried pushing away from Doppel, but the changeling didn't let go. Let him have tonight, Taya. This is a tradition of his. Use the rest of today to formulate your plan for how to spend as much time with him as possible. What if he tries to avoid me? Then use cuteness on him. And if push comes to shove, use magic on him. If he can't see that you need a few minutes for a hug, then maybe you should make him see. I don't want to make him mad. And he doesn't want to neglect you. He just doesn't understand ponies that well. All the little things you do for him go right over his head, Taya. You need to force him to see that you love him, even if it requires hugging him all day and night. I won't tell him I read this article. But I won't forget any of it, either. Those monsters hurt Daddy. One way or another, they're gonna pay. I don't think Nav wants you hurting any pony. Taya looked back at her cutie mark. But my destiny is combat magic. Then it's time you put it to use, Miguel said, breaking the memory. Doppel disappeared and Taya fell to the floor. Taya, I said, gently poking her with a foot. Where are we? She asked, looking around. In a maze, fighting Miguel. If you see him, toast him. K. She hopped to her hooves and we started walking again. How did I get here? What's the last thing you remember? Your birthday party? Why are we fighting Miguel again? Because life is suffering, honey. That answer seemed to satisfy her. As tempting as it was to rub my filly's ears as we walked, I didn't want to distract her. I also wanted to start training myself away from touching her as much. It didn't stop her from bumping up against me every few steps anyway. You're so casual about putting your filly in harm's way, Miguel sighed, almost sounding disappointed. What kind of parent are you? You're the one who brought her here. You're also the one who said she had to kill you. Who are you talking to? Taya asked. Miguel. He's doing this thing where he talks into my head. I thought it was out loud, but apparently not. Hey. Are you sure you aren't just going crazy? One doesn't preclude the other. Let's just call it magic and leave it at that. I thought you didn't like using magic as an explanation, Taya said. I do when it's con. Miguel appeared in front of us, stabbing a dagger straight toward Taya. I grabbed his paw by the wrist and pulled him in for another headbutt. Taya grabbed his other arm and slammed him against the wall. The knife fell from his hand and he disappeared before she could do more. Since when could he teleport? Taya asked. Remember what I said about life being suffering? Kill on sight. Don't throw him around or whatever, just tear out his organs. Which ones? I'm not picky. Just pick a few and go nuts. I can't believe you're openly plotting my death, Miguel said, feigning shock. That really hurts. I didn't want to confuse Taya with more nonsense and there was no real reason to reply, so I didn't. The next intersection was another two-way. The left side slowly seemed to turn more to the left as it went. The straight option was another staircase. Any preferences? I asked. Those boxes look too high for me to climb. Left it is. We started going that way. Sure enough, I ended up inside another memory. This time, it was in the meeting room on the ship. Cod and Watcher were sitting at the table across from each other. The walls were decked out with all kinds of hanging plants which I knew weren't actually there. Nav says you were an assassin, Watcher said. I was, Cod replied with a nod. For many, many years. I decided I didn't much care for it, in the end. Have you had any notable targets? Yes. I was just recently hired to assassinate Princess Gilda. I betrayed my mark by warning King Bloodbeak, who I knew was a friend of Nav's. I hear you have a history with Nav. Cod didn't reply. Nav was at the center of all kinds of rumors and I had access to records most don't. You know, there's even a picture of the tattoo he had when he got back, in one record. Nav and I have come to an understanding. I'm aware. That's why I'm talking to you instead of throwing you off the side. I understand that the actions we take in the past don't always have to define us. There is room for forgiveness in this world, and there are always chances for repentance. That is why I am here, Watcher. I made a mistake that I want to make up for. Navarone was kind enough to offer me the chance. Do you know why we're on this journey? No, and it doesn't matter. I'm here to follow Nav's orders. And just to be with him. Be careful who you say that to. I think Taya and Kumani might also have an idea of what you did. I knew I would face repercussions for my actions. I am not afraid. Time with Nav will soothe whatever may come. That made Watcher lift an eyebrow. This seems a little beyond wanting to fix a mistake. You wouldn't happen to love him, would you? With all my heart. I honestly didn't expect you to just admit it. Does Nav know? Probably not. His heart is lost to me. I can see it in his eyes. He can barely tolerate my presence. The thought that I might care for him could drive him away entirely. For some strange reason, Nav trusts you. I have my doubts, but I do know that you've been honest this entire conversation. That's promising. Nav offered me a place here. I intend to do nothing to make him regret it. Perhaps, in time, he will forgive me. Do you have any miscellaneous skills? Cooking or alchemy, maybe. I know basic poison making, though I doubt I'd recognize any ingredients you'd have on Pa. I can also cook, though most of what I'd make would probably be too spicy for ponies. Talk to Sunny and see if she has a place for you on the kitchen rotation. Zakora is our resident alchemist, if you think you can help her. And if you're interested in learning more about poisons, one of the mares in my team, Nightshade, could assist. Knowledge is power, or so I've heard. And I'd be happy to talk to Sunny. Cooking is a good way to earn friends quickly, after all. Do you have any issues with other races? I'm not sure who all you've met, but we have 2 dragons, a naga, a changeling, a zebra, and a minotaur. The only race who might attack me on sight are the elephants. I don't know too much about changelings, dragons, or minotaurs, though. Doppel would be happy to talk as much as you want. She also feeds off lust, so she would be happy to help you relieve stress as well. Jack is the blacksmith and can help you maintain any equipment. He can likely also help forge new things, given enough time. I've already spoken to Doppel, Kot said with a slight blush. She was just as curious about cats as I was about changelings. It was enlightening. Why can't I see that memory? I'm in need of a few weapons, so I'll introduce myself to Jack soon. The last thing I have for you is a warning. That made Kot roll her eyes. No, I'm not going to threaten you or anything cliché like that. Watch yourself around Taya. She's protective of Nav. And he's even more protective of her. She also happens to be strangely powerful for a filly, and skilled in the types of magic that turn ponies inside out. Add in that she's impatient and quick to jump to violence and you have a very unpleasant little combination. If she knows what you did, she might be out for blood. Nav said he would speak to her. I assume he handled it, because she's been nothing but sweet to me. You've been warned. Go introduce yourself to Sunny. Very well. She got up and that ended the memory. Taya didn't seem upset in the slightest, so I assumed she hadn't heard it. This place seems bigger than the last warehouse, Taya said. How did we get here, again? It's a very long story. The short version is that you don't actually exist, you're just a construct brought to me by a magical coma to help me defeat a visual representation of a piece of mental trauma. The reason you don't know how you got here is because you literally didn't exist until you were created to help me. Oh. You coulda just said it's a dream, Daddy. I can't believe you just told your filly she doesn't exist, Miguel said. You're the worst parent ever. This way I don't have to keep lying to her. I also don't have to keep answering question after question. A loud chime went off behind us. We whirled around to find Miguel stuck in a magical trap. Taya's horn lit up and his spleen, appendix, and brain all tore out and fell to the ground with squelches. She immolated the body moments later. "That's my filly," I said. While she was toasting him, I impaled his brain with the sword. With it stuck, I lifted it up and held it over the fire to let it burn, too. When enough of the body was gone that I was confident we were good, I nodded. "That was much easier than I thought it would be, to be honest." "Were you underestimating me, Daddy?" Taya sweetly asked. "No, I just expected you to try throwing him around a few more times until actually getting lethal in an attempt to prolong this section of the coma to make me see more visions." "No, there aren't any more," she replied. "I was trying to role-play it better, but you ruined it by telling me." "Taya." "No, it's Hope. She hasn't joined you yet." "Oh. I was going to give you a hug and scratch your ears, but I'm not supposed to touch you guys." Of course, that made her pout. "So, does that mean we're done here?" "We are," my guide said, finally appearing before me. She reached out some watery goodness to heal the cuts and stabs on me. It felt much better, that's for sure. "You have a new message. Are you ready to return to the grove?" "I am." Her eyes flashed and we returned to the place of resting. End chapter 194.